You know, React is this very interesting beast that has its own syntax. Because there we don't deal with just these unordered lists, list items, and so on, but we can start writing some other things as well. And for that, as an illustration, we can just go to babel.js.io, and here we have the try it out. babel.js.io/REPL. REPL, it's like read, eval, print loop. And here you can see that given that in another class, I demonstrated the basics of React not too long ago, I still have something in here. So let me just delete this part. And let me introduce this import-export syntax to you first. So we have this import React from React and import React DOM from React DOM. These things are basically the React library and React DOM library accessed in your source code. So from now on, you can write things like react.createElement. And then inside, you can just create an element that is, for example, a div that has no attributes and there is nothing inside it. So this is just an empty div. And you can see that this code on the left is translated to React default create element div. We could just do something like hello React, for example. And we can also render this. So if we added another CodePen, actually I'm gonna do exactly that. So CodePen.io. We're gonna go to CodePen.io and we will just run this so that you see that React is working. In order to experiment with React in CodePen, you have to enable it. So super important, on the top right, you have this window. I'll make this a bit smaller, the CodePen window. You have to select Babel as the JavaScript preprocessor. This is why we went to babel.js.io for demoing, by the way. And then you have to add React, and then you have to add react-dom. You see that at the time of recording, the current version of is 16.13.1. You may have version 17 by the time you watch it, or even later. It doesn't matter because React is doing a very good job at being backwards compatible. This means that whatever applied 2, 3, 5 years ago, oftentimes is still available in the newest version. It doesn't hold for everything because, for example, there is this thing called the context API, which is not working anymore in the same way how it was originally intended. But it doesn't really matter. What matters is that the basics and the strongest fundamentals don't change. This is where Angular went really bad, and this is when Angular became really unpopular back in the days. Because Angular had a lot of breaking changes, especially between AngularJS version 1 and Angular version 2. And then the industry didn't really know what was going on. Here in React we don't have this problem, and maybe this is the reason why React is the most popular framework right now based on Google Trends data and the state of JS data, and every survey I have seen says that React is the most popular framework or most popular library overall. It's a debate of how much React is a full-fledged framework or not. Well, let's not get into this topic because like how much React helps you basically write the code or how much you help React work out the details, that's another question. So in a framework we have something we call the inversion of control, which means that if React is in control, then it's a framework. If you're in control and you use React features to do something, then it acts as a library. So framework, library, oftentimes it boils down to whether you have a full-fledged state management, and basically you just help React run the code by describing what you need to do in a way that that you don't provide the nitpicky details. So React, let it be a library, let it be a framework, let it be the Wien MVC, which is an old, outdated explanation. Doesn't really matter what it is. What matters from our perspective is that we're gonna start experimenting. So in this babel.js.io, I can do this react.createElement. So var first element, actually first element like this, equals react.createElement. And we will not use this react.createElement at all in the future. We're just using it now for illustration purposes. This is the first element. In the real code base, you will have something like import react from react and import react DOM from react DOM. But you don't need this here because in CodePen, we do the same thing here in the imports. So you don't need these things. In fact, you cannot even add these because CodePen doesn't understand this. So let's do the react DOM.render. And here you add your first element like this. And well, it would be very useful to just copy paste the same element that you have here, this JS root, to the HTML, and copy this document.query selector here. So paste. The second argument is where do you want to render this thing. And then after adding all these, you see that at the bottom this hello react appeared. And if you change this div to h1, then you will see that after re-rendering it changes to a heading, the largest possible heading that you can have. So congratulations, if you followed along with me, you have successfully created your first ever React element. But let's go a bit farther than that. Because instead of writing this react.createElement, which is kind of long and kind of not too user-friendly, React came up with another solution. So this is like var first equals this, var second equals, and then instead of react.createElement, I just write h1 hello react exclamation slash h1 semicolon. And let's see the difference between the first and the second. Well, there is a comment. Who cares about the comment? Underscore react.default.createElement. Here, same thing. Then we have h1. Okay, I created single quotes. They created double quotes in Babel. It doesn't matter either. It's it's like preference. So single quotes, double quotes in JavaScript, they both describe strings. Null, null, same thing. And then we have the hello react, and I think I didn't have an exclamation in here. So maybe it's time to change that. Now we have the exclamation here, and we have the exclamation here as well. So essentially, this is the same code as writing this. And this is the key thing to understand about React. So if you're a complete beginner at React, then you might have been surprised if you read React code, for example, in the official documentation or any code snippet, that it looks like writing HTML. But it's not happening. We're not writing HTML in JavaScript. This is not HTML. This is a syntax called JSX, extended JavaScript. And Babel does the job of translating this JSX into valid JavaScript react.createElement calls. And this is all we have to do, nothing more. That's all for React. So when you see this, think of it as react.createElement calls. And given that the way to describe these elements is kind of ugly as react.createElement, React creators allowed us to describe these create elements as h1s. So this is what we're gonna do in the CodePen too. So instead of this react.createElement, we're gonna just write first element h1, then we add the hello react inside like this, and then slash h1 semicolon. This is the same thing as the react.createElement, and we're gonna remove the react.createElement, And as you can see, it's working. It's working without any problems. So this is the first element. This is how the first element is working. So this is gonna be just the heading. So this is the heading.